I'd like to use my time tonight to clarify some of the questions that I've been getting from parents about this budget. For the past 5 to 6 years, I've been writing about property taxes and school funding at civicparent.org, and I've taken a strong interest in the budget process last year and this year. I've attended the meetings 2 weeks ago and over the course of the past 2 weeks. So I just want to get a couple things on the record in community tonight. First of all, that we've had since June 2018, we've had notice of these cuts. We've had notice that the state would cut our aid to the tune of $25 to $30 million a year starting in 2019-2020. This was not a surprise. Jersey City Together education advocates were at PTA meetings, in houses of worship, in living rooms, teaching this funding crisis over the last year and a half. You were not restricted. You were not restricted from raising the school tax levy. You had the power and the authority to raise the school tax levy higher than $12 million, which would have prevented the cuts that we're now seeing. So that is very important for the public to understand, that you had that authority and the power to raise the school tax levy and force a conversation with the city, but you chose not to do that as a governing body. There's been concerns, legitimate concerns, about if we raise the school tax levy, then will people's overall taxes go up? That, of course, is not necessarily true. When someone pays a property tax, they're actually funding the county, the schools, and the city. Our schools are egregiously underfunded. Only 24 cents of every property tax dollar goes to the schools. The city takes 48 cents and the county takes 26 cents. That is unacceptable. That is systemic underfunding, which leads to what we have tonight. And that tells us, and this is what we've been teaching in our workshops, and we learned it and then we taught it. Now others are teaching it. You learn about your community when you see how it spends its money, and we are not prioritizing our public schools in Jersey City, and that is frankly a shame. It is shameful. It is unacceptable to pit affordable housing concerns against public schools concerns. We need to make space for the schools and for people to afford to live here. We have $120 million of pilot fees on our city's budget books. $120 million in this year's proposed budget of pilot fees. None of that gets shared with the schools. If it did get shared with the schools, we would have $42 million extra. This is based on Dr. Regina Robinson's figure cited 2 weeks ago. We would have $42 million more in school tax right now. That will cover the cost of these employees who now are holding pink slips. The pilots have also accelerated gentrification in Jersey City, pushing people out, displacing people in areas like Greenville, schools like PS15, PS23, PS34. It is unacceptable, the trajectory that we are on, and it is all connected. To pit housing concerns against public schools, we see you for what you're doing. We are Jersey City Together, and we've been on the housing front, and we've been on the education front, and we see it, and we're calling it out. Now, you missed your opportunity when you failed to raise the school tax levy. That window closed to the detriment of hundreds of employees who now are uncertain about their employment going into the spring and the summer. You can engage the city. You can go to City Hall, and you can demand that they allocate their funds to the schools. Pilot funds, surplus funds, payroll tax, the full amount, certified right now. They have school tax, they have school money that belongs to the schools, and we want it back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jill Josephson. I'm a leader with Jersey City Together, and you have just received a letter via email, and also we have distributed that letter to you, and I'm going to read that letter into the record. Dear Jersey City Board of Education Trustees, we write to you today with deep frustration and anger. The budget being considered tonight will be devastating for our city's students, teachers, paras, nurses, counselors, other critical staff, and our schools as a whole. Class sizes are expected to balloon to more than 30 students per class. Legally mandated services for our students with special needs will go unmet, exposing the district and taxpayers to potential litigation. The impact of these cuts will reverberate negatively in our city for years. We all knew the budget process this year would be challenging, as Bridget just said, but the scale of the cuts proposed was wholly preventable. You and your fellow trustees had the explicit sole authority to increase the local school tax levy to whatever amount was required to avoid this scale of staffing cuts. You also had the platform and mandate to force a public conversation with the city, demanding that city officials relieve the tax burden for residents by holding its spending at bay. You did neither of these things. But tonight and in the coming weeks, you have another opportunity to lead. We urge you to stand with us and other allies to call on the City of Jersey City to take two immediate actions. First, to certify as soon as possible the maximum funding from the payroll tax for the 2019-2020 school year to compensate for the more than $27 million in state adjustment aid cuts. So the city could certify the maximum amount, which it has not done yet and has not promised to do. Second, to amend the draft municipal budget to include specific line items to be sent to the Jersey City Board of Education from the city budget as soon as possible to alleviate the stress and uncertainty of layoff notices for hundreds of staff. Specifically, we call on you to demand monies from the city's $35 million budget surplus. The city has a budget surplus. They could give that money to the schools. We're asking you to demand that. And from one-time settlements, these monies can and should be earmarked to prevent layoffs and rehire staff. Mayor Fulop has publicly stated that he believes the payroll tax can only legally cover $13.7 million of the $27.2 million in state adjustment aid cuts. In other words, only half of the state adjustment aid cuts. That's not acceptable. If this is true, but if it's true that they can't legally give the whole $27 million out of the payroll tax, then they can give it out of their surplus.
That's right.
Any specific line item set aside for the Jersey City Board of Education should more than cover this difference. Our schools are crying out for leadership, and it is time for you to step up. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Beverly. I'm the Educational Secretary Association's president. I just want to thank everyone, first of all, for coming out because your concerns resonate with us. And not to be redundant, I'm going to just speak upon how this is affecting our affiliate. We are the clerical staff, the ones that answer the phones, the ones that run in between while our teachers are teaching. We are manning the buildings and we are holding everything together. There's 240 of us. 125 is estimated to be laid off. I don't even know how to wrap my mind around that to support our buildings, support our students, support our children. You talk about community, these are our kids. These are our children. It scares me how we will be able to support them with 115 clerical staff. Because if these layoffs come, that is what we're leaving, 115 for 40 some odd schools.
I'm Alexandra Campos. I am the citywide representative of Infinity Institute. I come here to the monthly meetings with you guys. So essentially it's come to our attention that Infinity can no longer be hosted at its building. And we are aware of this, but what we're not in accord with is that we move to PS9 because we've been told that we're going to be on the second floor. There is a projection of 500 total students for next year for Infinity's population. And I don't think the second floor of PS9 is enough to really host us. So you see, we are a top 500 school in this nation and a top 25 school in New Jersey. And I feel like restricting us to just this small little portion of this building is essentially pushing us out of what we could have had. So you see, MS40 is empty. And we found out that 40's population is combining with 41. So we know that MS40 is empty, but you guys are pushing us into PS9. And we'd prefer, I think all of us would, to move into MS40. At the moment, our gym is our auditorium. So when we have assemblies, we can't have gym at the same time. But MS40 has its own auditorium. It has its own gym. It has a better parking lot than Infinity has, frankly. I mean, the library in MS40 is much bigger than what we currently have, which is a small part of a classroom that's been divided in half. If you ask me, we shouldn't be put into PS9. We should be moved into MS40 instead.
Fifth grader at PS3. Some of my favorite teachers are being laid off thanks to budget cuts, and one of my favorite subjects, music, is no longer being taught to some of the fifth graders in PS3. I want this to stop. As I'm leaving PS3 next year, I want music to be taught again for fifth graders and my favorite teachers to teach again.
So, I mean, if we're looking to reduce the teachers at number 11 school that much, we're going to have a pretty negative impact there. I mean, if you look at our teacher scores, well, the scores of the school, even with having that kind of a language barrier with the Coptic community, number 11 does really good. So if you're looking to have a negative impact on our school, that's the way to do it. Take away the teachers. So let's make sure that we're doing the right thing with the head count as to how many are going to be let go, and making sure that we're doing everything absolutely without question possible to have the impact to the actual classrooms as low as possible. Because once you start bumping up the classroom sizes, you're looking at some pretty negative impacts. I mean,
Get the mayor to come here, you know, and I know that last year we had similar situations where people were happy that there were no layoffs. There were no layoffs, but what you guys did was set up the teachers for failure. A teacher goes home after teaching summer school thinking that she's going to be teaching third grade. She comes back, she's told she's going to be teaching science. We have middle school teacher, the theater teacher teaching first grade. We should let the principals decide where people are going to go. They know better than anyone on this board or anyone at the main office what the school needs are.
We've cut art, we've cut music, we've cut after-school programs. And in place of it, we put beautiful graphs up of test scores. This is the consequence. And now what do we tell our children? What do I tell my students next year, second graders in a class of 36? Do I put them on a computer? But we are willing to work with you, get rid of these useless programs. I mean, I'm looking for the senior staff. We used to be filled with chiefs up here. Chief of talent. For what?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Monique Talavera. My son actually attends this school. But before I start, special education, can you stand up if you got your wrist? My son is considered nonverbal. He's autistic. My son struggles to communicate, just to say hello. These people, my son can say good morning. My son could say hello. My son could show affection. My son's learning. You've taken these teachers and putting him in a class that's normally 6 kids and putting him in a class of 30, and you're going to tell me that my son's going to flourish? All you're doing is taking away his future. His teacher, who has been with him for the last 2 school years, is one of the people that you're letting go. One of the most effective people. My son can actually sit there and talk to you now. My son has a mentality of a 2-year-old, and my son will walk into a room and see his teacher and light up. And the nerve that you guys have, that you actually had the power to go and get the funding that you needed to avoid this happening. And find out that you had the actual authority to go up and fight for it, and you did nothing. You did nothing. What does that say about you?
We had the shortest commute. Like hundreds of other Jersey City Public Schools employees, I was the unfortunate recipient of RIF letters. One on Monday, and another on Friday, acting as bookends for Teacher Appreciation Week. 3 years ago, almost to the day, I walked into the Board of Education building down on West Side for my interview. The security guard greeted me with a welcome to Jersey City Public Schools. and I took that as a sign that good things were about to happen. I was so excited to land a job that was perfect. Accidentally ends up teaching in Jersey City. Each and every employee of the Jersey City Public Schools chooses to work here in Jersey City. Just recently, Trustee Lyons was referencing a conversation he had with someone who had brought up the challenges that were being faced in Montclair. And we all kind of chuckled about how different it would be to work somewhere where the biggest challenge was some missing sports equipment, instead of the violence, the poverty, and the struggle that we see on a daily basis. Some of us choose to work here in Jersey City because our grandparents and our great-grandparents were raised here, and we want to maintain the connection to our family's history. Some of us work here because we're the products of Jersey City Public Schools, and we want to give back to our community. And furthermore, some of us choose to teach here because we're passionate about equity in public education. Life would probably be a whole lot easier teaching out in the burbs, but here we are, here in Jersey City. The employees that this district risks losing are the staff members who make sure that each kid has bus tickets to get home after practice. We are the teacher aides who sneakily pay for an 8th grader to get his graduation pictures, knowing the child's father doesn't have the money to pay for it himself. We are the teachers who tutor kids for their SATs late in the evening instead of going home and caring for our own kids. We collect extra snacks during the week and stash them in the backpacks of kids that we know aren't eating a whole lot of food over the weekends. We do all this because we care about the children of Jersey City. Now, nobody needs to tell a group of teachers about how budgets work. No one needs to let us know that you can't operate in the red. Being broke is something that all educators in this city, tenured and non-tenured alike, are way too familiar with. As we have been enduring crippling contributions to our health insurance for years, we get it, we really do. I understand the predicament that you are all in, being charged with producing a workable budget for the upcoming year. We all know, every single one of us in this room tonight knows that there have been other players in this game for the past several years that have dumped us into the situation that we're in now. However, that's not my fault, it's not our fault, and now we're paying for other people's actions, and it's not fair. I'm hearing that folks are not going to start getting hired back till the end of the summer. Don't worry, Littman, you're going to be okay. That's been done every year. That's a terrifying thought. Think about that. Just go home and sit and wait for the phone to ring. Those of us who are in peril of losing our jobs, we have children to feed. We have homes to maintain and families to care for. We can't sit around all summer hoping that the phone's going to ring. Even if we are lucky enough to get rehired, who's to say what position will be offered to us? Will it be one that we would want? Will it be an assignment that will both suit and challenge us professionally? Many teachers have already started looking outside of the district out of necessity. How sad will it be to lose quality educators with proven track records for being dedicated to helping Jersey City children? I urge you to do whatever is in your control as a board to obviously do your due diligence in regards to staffing next year, but do it urgently. Do not lose a teacher to a neighboring district because we have all summer to figure this out. Make it a priority to determine who will be rehired and get that information out quickly. Please do this out of respect for your employees. Employees who have given so much for the Jersey City Public Schools for however long we've been employed here. And finally, at the top of the letterhead that I received my RIF notices on, it says, doing what's best for our children. I respectfully ask that you keep this sacred. Are you doing what's best for our children? Thank you.
I'm a middle school math teacher at Franklin L. Williams Middle School 7, as well as the head varsity basketball coach and assistant junior varsity softball coach at McNair Academic. In June, I will complete my 8th year in the district. While I did not receive a RIF letter last week, many of my colleagues and friends did. These same colleagues and friends who remained united and stood outside their schools during the fall of 2017 and winter of 2018, fighting for an equitable contract. Therefore, it is time to fight for those hundreds of teachers who may not have a job in September. These professionals
are not just a line item on a budget. They're individuals who are experts in their subject areas, are valuable assets to their school communities, and most importantly, sources of inspiration for their students. The teachers who receive RIF letters in my school are some of the best educators I've ever had the privilege of working with. In my building, 11 staff members received letters. Teachers who instruct the following areas: special education, bilingual, ESL, port of entry, general education, special education, and our school nurse. Class sizes in many schools are already at maximum capacity. How will students receive a thorough and comprehensive education if expert educators are removed from positions of necessity? Special education and bilingual students are often deemed populations in need. So how will removing those educators most skilled in specialized instruction allow those students to be successful? Increasing class sizes to 30 or more students will not result in the effective acquisition of knowledge. Rather, larger class sizes will only lead to more exhausted teachers, more deficit students, overly taxed administrators, and increasingly frustrated parents. As educators, our main priority is to effectively educate all students in Jersey City Public Schools. So how will these planned layoffs accomplish that goal? The hundreds of individuals who received RIF letters are not the ones who caused the $120 million shortage in the district budget. I understand that our funding was cut. Development over the years were contributing factors to the current deficit. Because balancing the district's budget is a yearly task, I am sincerely confused as to why an approval of any budget that would push the district this far into a deficit would be allowed. In regard to their budget, there should be more accountability and transparency. Please evaluate all areas of spending district-wide to determine if any savings can be made so that all of these educational professionals can keep their positions for the 2019-2020 school year. Please remember that these individuals who receive RIF letters are more than a line item. Many of them organize and facilitate after-school programs, coach various seasonal sports, coordinate assemblies, shows, and ceremonies for students, donating their time and talent sometimes without compensation.
I am a Jersey City resident. I am a Jersey City teacher. I teach at MS7. I have my sharks behind me. And I am also a parent. I just want to reiterate something that Emily said. I did choose to come back to Jersey City. I went to DC to get my certification. I'm certified to go nationally, and I chose to come back to Jersey City. And she's absolutely right. Anyone who is here chooses to be here and is here because they love to be here and they love to serve the children of Jersey City. I'd like to address issues surrounding the budget. Our administration and you, the Board of Education, have been tasked with the arduous endeavor of budgeting with not only the pre-existing shortfalls of funding, but now that budgeting includes the compounding factor of the reduction of state aid. I have been following the meetings both of the Board of Education and the City Council, and with this in mind, I read the email sent by our mayor to all of the residents, ensuring that he and the City Council have done all that they could do to fully fund the school system. In fact, he stated, and I quote, "The city hasn't granted any tax abatements for years. The city has stopped the historical practice of long-term tax abatements for market-rate housing." I find his statement and the general hands-off attitude of the City Council with regard to this matter concerning. Why? Because while my taxes have doubled, the property next to me is offering a 5-year tax abatement for not just 1 unit, for 4 units. Wow. It is just listed. It just went on the market. The property is a 4-unit property, as I mentioned, offered at $1 million each.